Hello, brilliant jewelry community. We have a 3D jewelry animation to complete. We have a 3D jewelry animation to render. Let's get started. So first, remember that this is a crash test dummy, a lower resolution model of the ring. So first, I need to file append the high resolution model and copy the animation data. For that, I'm going to select the high resolution model, then the lower resolution animated ring. I'm going to go to Object, Link Animation Data. So now the result is that my big high resolution ring has exactly the same animation. It worked very well because my objects have exactly the same origin point. Obviously now I just need to adapt the scale. So we're going to go to keyframe 1 because there's a keyframe on the scale right there. And I'm going to scale my high resolution ring. Great, so here's the proper scale. And in fact, what I can do, right click on the scale and make a clear keyframes because we won't be animating the scale at all. So I can remove all the keyframes for the scale from this point. And now we can see that the high resolution model took exactly the same place as the crash test dummy lower resolution in this part of the animation. So now it also means that I can take the lower resolution model and erase it from the scene and only keep the high resolution model for the rendering of the animation. So now first we're going to add a camera. Go to the front view, Control-Alt-0 to set the camera, and we're going to adapt the position of the camera. And for the first shot, we're going to use the anamorphic theatrical aspect ratio. That's 239 to 100 to have a cinematic view. And now we need to frame the scene correctly. For the beginning, I want a shot with only the animated ring. So for that, I need to hide the liquid domain, and I'm going to go earlier in the motion around these frames here, and I'm going to take the camera and I'm going to adapt the position of the camera until I have this nice upgoing curve of the flying ring before it hits the liquid. Now we need to create the environment, lighting, some basic materials, and set up a background. Good, let's model some background, add mesh plane, go to edit mode, merge at center, side view, we're going to go there and extrude on the y-axis, there, and start extruding a shape like this. Go to camera view and check that you're covering the field. I'm going to select everything and I'm going to make it slightly smaller and readapt my background. There now I'm going to go to the left and I'm going to extrude to the right on the x-axis. Far away. There. Now we're going to do a face orientation check. Select everything and flip them. Exit edit mode. Save and be happy. Now let's go to shading. So we have no environment. So let's go to the world, background, color, environment, texture. Today I will be using the Sataranite from Polyhaven 4K XR. Download it and load it in your environment. Now let's go to world. Let's add a color HSV node before the background. I'm going to remove the saturation completely. Then I'm going to add a texture coordinates generated vector and a mapping node here in the middle because I don't want that shadow to the back there. I want it maybe down here, or maybe I don't want the shadow. So let's start rotating the background and let's have a look at, I think that shadow there on the floor is going to be very nice to give a sense of depth to our animation. Now let's go to object, new material, material floor, metallic, one shade, smooth, roughness 0.1, 0.2. Here let's make an horizontal split and bring the timeline here so we can see the frames. Now let's add input, RGB, color to color, add ambient occlusion, here distance 50, add an HSV node there, and I want the background to be pretty dark. Good. Now let's add a light, point light. Let's put it up here, there to the side, camera view. Okay, power, exaggerate the power and the strength. Give it some size. Good, now keep tweaking the light, the background material to adapt the details. So at this point, the background, I tweaked the value, the roughness, the geometry, made it bigger, go down a bit. Then light sources, I have this point light that's like a general point light, pretty high in the sky. It's a big light, radius 50 and not very strong. Then there's a secondary light down here, making the shadow of the ring on the background. But I want to animate this light. So the range of the animation for this shot is frame 10 to 475. It's this segment. It will be only the ring flying. Let's animate the location of the light. So here at the middle, I want to be around here, and at the end, somewhere there, even more to the right. And let's go to animation of this point light on the x-axis, and let's test some kind of trajectory for the position of the light. Something like this for now. Good, let's go back to shading. Now on the ring, the gold, metallic 1, roughness 0.5. In edit mode, let's select the gold, do a mesh shading, smooth faces, only on the gold, obviously not on the diamonds. Now add a bevel node to the normals, tweak the radius, add ambient occlusion to the color, distance maybe 3. You can test it. You can see that the inside shadows are being affected by the ambient occlusion. So we should have some inside shadows like this on the gold. Now for the color, it may be not full white. Then on the diamonds, roughness 0, metallic 0, IOR 2.418, transmission to 1. Okay, so let's say that's good, but I think the gold is too dark, the diamond is too dark, so we need to make some trick there to adapt this situation. So at this point is where and when you need to start thinking differently. And this is exactly where AI won't help you, because this is an emotional problem and AI is really not good at emotions. What we need is a more original concept. I'm going to make the first segment in clay. So I've made a clay material for the background. It's a bit darker. The gold has its own clay material also, and the diamonds have also a specific clay material. So we're going to check the setup for these materials. And this is the first material we had for the background, and this is the clay material now. So it's also a very simple principal BSDF material with the color, the HSV, the occlusion, adapting the metallic and the roughness to avoid having a too light material for the background and have a nice contrast with the jewel that's flying by in front of it. And the nodes are in the same material because we'll need that later. So then on the diamonds, this is the first basic diamond material we had earlier, and this is the clay material for the diamond. So here we have some transmission on the diamonds, and instead of being at 1, I'm staying at 0.9 for the transmission, so it doesn't get too dark, because at 1 it really gets darker. You might like that much contrast, but I want the clay of the diamonds to be closer to the clay of the gold ring, the gold body. So here on the gold, I have some Voronoi bump map. You can see the effects here and there. The diamonds are plain flat. They have no bump map. They have a slight bevel, but the body has more bevel, stronger bevel. And it's also a very simple setup of color, HSV, ambient occlusion. And this is the result. For the output, always remember to render a bit more frames than you need. So here, this sequence will very probably be useful only to the cuspid of the trajectory. That's about here. But I'm rendering more frames because for editing, you always need more material. Don't make that rookie mistake. Don't forget to set an output file. We won't be using the alpha, compression at 0 for the rendering settings, only 320 samples, the open image denoiser at highest quality, quite many max bounces, and I am using the motion blur with standard settings because the motion blur in such an animation is a very natural element. So at this point, go ahead and make the render, Control F12 to be ready to work on the next sequences. And obviously, it's every time that you're making the render that you get the best ideas. So we're going to make green 3D printing resin on a warm gray background. Okay, so for the floor now, we have a color ramp with a quadratic sphere gradient texture, a mapping node for the position of the gradient, HSV, ambient occlusion, metallic, pretty high roughness. So to have a nice smooth background. With the saturation, it would look like this, but it's a bit more classy if we tend to the gray with less saturation. Now for the green 3D printing resin, we have HSV node, ambient occlusion, not too much, a bevel, a very small bevel. Obviously that depends the size of your object. Then we have some subsurface, weight 1, so it's pretty strong. Size also pretty big, also depends the size of your object. And we have the tint from the resin to the specular, so we get this nice resin look. Let's start the render again. Obviously the previous version was already done. It's never a waste of time. At least test it so you can judge which one you prefer. And then obviously another nice effect we can do, turn on receive shadow caustics on the floor, on the ring cast shadow caustics, on your lights shadow caustics, turn it on the other light also. Also you can give some color to one of the lights if you like, and then go to the material, add a light path node, a mix shader, a transparent BSDF. This is the color from the original green resin color, so plug it to an HSV node to the transparent node. The mix shader with the original resin material, mix this to the output. So here you can give some coloration to the shadow because the resin has some transparency. My effect might be exaggerated, but for artistic reason, it looks a lot better. Okay, now go and save a new file because we're going to start a new sequence. We're going to render the liquid sequence. So let's go to shading and let's have a look at the liquid domain material. So the liquid domain material has the index of refraction of water. I don't want water. I want gold. So we won't need these nodes. We're going to bring a principal BSDF to the surface, RGB, ambient occlusion, HSV, metallic 1, roughness 0.5, something like this. So then the distance for the ambient occlusion, you can visually test it. Let's go at 0.75. Okay. Then also let's add a bevel node on the normal. Let's test some crazy values here and start going down. Okay, at 0.075, it works for me. And now we're going to add a Voronoi texture, distance to the normal. Don't forget the bump vector, texture on the height node, add texture coordinates and mapping. Now let's set the scale and the strength. A very discrete texture here, but it's a bit better. So now we need to check the frame range. So I want this sequence to go. Making videos makes one of my cats very cuddly, like almost every time. She's right behind me. So I'm going to keep this in the video because it's part of the job. So you need to juggle. Otherwise, making tutorials will be just like 5 minutes. But no, you need to deal with the rest of the world. And it's not that easy. So I was saying, okay, so the end frame, 60 frames per second, 4 seconds. That's 540 for the end frame. Okay, so I want the most of the liquid sequence because all the work it costs to make those simulations, you want to make it count. So remember that this light has an animation, but I don't necessarily have to keep the same lights. I don't necessarily have to keep the same background. And we're going to remove the animation on this point light. And now it's all about the camera. So here I might animate the camera. So here first, I have to check some point of views, some angles, some distances for the focal length or the scale of the orthographic camera. I need to test different positions. So you might say there's an entire empty zone here, but don't worry, I want the motion to be on the right side of the camera because I'm going to need that empty space on the left for very good reasons. Check also that the position of this light, that I removed the animation of that point light, but I adapted the position, makes a very interesting shadow. So that's already a nice element going on the left empty side. Good. So on the camera, I'm going to animate, I'm going to use the perspective camera. The only thing that I want to avoid is that I don't want the ring to be visible coming out of the liquid gold in this sequence. Focal length, I'm going to keyframe this. The focal length is great, but then I need to zoom in very slightly. So I want the ring to be visible inside the gold, but not coming out. Okay, so the front view is a great view. Let's have a look at the top view. I think the top view is maybe not that interesting. Let's have a look at the side views. Maybe this view can be interesting. So for now, we're going to work and focus on the front view. Okay, so this is very good for now. Don't forget to put another name for your frames to avoid crazy mistakes like overwriting other images from a previous render. You know, rookie mistakes. They make you laugh once maybe, but then they'll make you cry. So sequence 2, liquid sequence. And let's run the render, Control F12. Let's go grab some coffee, cuddle the cats, and we'll be back very soon. Okay, great. So now let's save yet another file because we're going to make another sequence. So for this sequence, what we're going to do is that we're going to turn the camera and we're going to try to find a nice angle, like here by example. So Control Alt 0. Okay, now we're going to adapt the resolution. Let's make it square. Let's remove the keyframes, clear keyframes on the camera focal length and adapt the focal length. Okay, now the background. So let's take the plain background and let's rotate it about 90 degrees here. Yet again, don't forget to put a new name for your new frames. Okay, and let's check the frame range and also, okay, so here we need more light. So let's try to take this light and maybe put it somewhere here. Okay, so it lights up the ring. And also let's check what happens in front of us. Okay, so here maybe the camera a bit more to the side on the y-axis. So you'll have to play the game of move and rotate until you find the perfect position for this third sequence. So this angle goes pretty far. I can stop at frame 471, starting at frame 300. That's pretty good. So let's go Control F12 on this third sequence. Then also here I've added depth of field for this sequence. So to do that, just go to add an empty plane axis. And then you select the ring and go to Object, Parent, Object. That's parenting the depth of field to the ring. And then you can go to Camera. And here we focus on the depth of field empty. So the camera always focus exactly on that point of the ring. Then also you can animate the strength of the depth of field of the f-stop. I have more depth of field at the beginning. And because I want several angles for my final animation, I have yet made another top-like three-quarter view, also using depth of field and a slight motion blur. And that's great, but this is just the middle of the animation. But we have yet to create the ending of this animation. And for that, I need to create a ring jewelry box. So let's get to it. So we're going to see the process. I'm going to show the benefits, also the problems that we'll face using AI. Here I'm going to use Gemini, the free version. Let's start with a very simple, I need to create a ring jewelry box. It's for an engagement ring. Okay, so here I'm going to ask Gemini to remove the ring from the box. And here I'm going to ask for a gray background. And it's important to complain when it doesn't work. So that's why using AI is, well, novel, fun, but most of the time it fails miserably way too often. just like now. And that's why I want to use AI in the videos, because yes, it works. And yes, it's faster, but also it's pathetically useless from time to time. And because most of us are going to be forced to use AI in our jobs, I want to show that in the videos, because, and we're going to complain together, we're going to laugh together, we're going to cry together, because it's just a new way, a different way to do things. You win something, you lose something every time. Okay, so here I'm going to tell Gemini that this is a disaster. I clearly understand why many people are just losing patience with this new technology, because your boss will want the results in a couple of seconds. And obviously, that's not working. It's not a reality. And now we have another problem. This image is 1,000 pixels square, and that resolution is too low for the AI mesh generators. It's better to use a 4K image. I'm going to drag and drop my image into a free AI image upscaler. We're going to go to 4K. Now here we can remove the watermark, use any software you like. Let's save this. And here we can clearly see the quality of this 4K image, the small details on the texture on the inside, by example. And this was generated with the free version of Gemini and a free AI image upscaler. So up to this point, you also need to have a specific workflow for the quality of the result. And now I'm going to drag and drop this image in an AI 3D model generator. I'm going to ask for the texture. I'm going to use the middle quality for this mesh. We'll barely see it in the animation. I just want the ring to finish inside the box. So this is going to take a couple of minutes. I'm using a paid AI mesh generator, but there are also very good free AI mesh generators. And we will be talking about these free generators because many of you will want to use free AI mesh generators. So I will be showing how to use these tools in context. We will also be talking about the failures of these tools in specific situations, about how to correct these errors. Okay, and this is the result in 10 minutes. Is it perfect? No, but is it perfect for what I need? Yes. And as always, I'm going to ask my cat what she thinks about this. And we're going to go to Blender to keep making our animation. Good. So now let's go back to Blender and we're going to make a file import. I'm going to use the object format. A very obvious observation, but this is what I have. This is what I paid for. More and more clients are going to start using AI mesh generators. So obviously we could all complain about AI doesn't work, AI blah, 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 blah. And this is part of my new job, correct AI models. So in Blender, let's go to edit mode. And what we're going to do is that we're going to select what we don't need to correct. I'm going to hide it. Okay, so now I'm going to select what needs to be corrected. I'm going to turn on the proportional editing. And here, let's try to rotate on the y-axis. So it's funny because to do this, you need to develop more skills than the skills that you already have for, let's say, traditional hard surface modeling, sculpting, and all of that, because we are going to use all these skills in a very specific situation. Correcting models is generally harder than making a nice model from scratch. And that's crazy. We are going to get paid to do this. Okay, so now here I have the texture. We have some details to correct. So let's go to texture paint. Okay, so here I'm going to clone basically. Okay, so here I want this to be more like brass. So let's paint this. So this is pretty basic, but you need to be very precise. So maybe I won't even see these parts in my animation, but let's make the correction. Don't forget to save the image of the painted texture. Okay, so these were the small corrections to this AI generated mesh. Okay, so now in shading, I'm making some tweaks to the material to adapt it to my scene. I'm mixing the color of the background with the color of the texture image. So this is the setup for this jewelry box for the material. And now let's go back to making the animation. And I need to make it receive the ring somewhere at the ending of the trajectory. And this is the position that I want for the final frame. The ring inside the jewelry box. but I want gold, ruby, and diamonds. So now on the shading, for the gold, remember that we did the gold at the beginning of this video. It was white gold, but let's adapt it to yellow gold. Then the diamonds. And for the central gem, I want a ruby. So let's assign a new material to the central gem. Let's do something very basic. That's good enough for now. Now I need to adapt the trajectory of the flying jewel. So I'm going to keyframe a position here before the arrival. And here I'm going to delete the previous keyframe and move my new keyframe much sooner at the beginning of the animation. So we're going to have this. Obviously, the trajectory is very wrong because I want the ring to come sit inside the box like this. Okay, so now here, this is the position of the camera. The light is obviously super wrong, but don't worry about that. First, let's work on the movements. I want the ring to rotate more, but also I want the camera to grab more of the movement. So I'm going to keyframe the camera, location rotation. Let's clear the keyframes on the focal length and make new keyframes. So around here, I want the camera to be looking at the ring from the front still. Something like this. So let's keyframe, location rotation, focal length. So here I need to adapt the rotation of the camera. Okay, there. And on the Z location also, I want the camera to stay up because I want the ring to be on the screen all the time. Something like this, that's pretty okay for now. But also I want the ring to rotate a lot more. So let's add 360 degrees to the rotation of the ring on the Z-axis and on the X-axis, 360 degrees. So the ring is going to flip during this sequence. Sometimes you work the ending before the rest. I still need a sequence of the ring coming out of the liquid. Never forget to save and be happy, even if you're almost done. So now we have to take care of this sequence. That's when the ring comes out of the liquid. And here what we're going to do is to swap the materials. When coming in, the ring is in 3D printing green resin and the liquid is liquid gold. But when it comes out, oh great magic, the ring is in gold, diamonds and ruby, and the liquid is the 3D printing green resin. And this simple trick allows us to create an amazing sequence. Obviously from here, it's all about editing. You can do it in Blender, but most of the time I do it in another software. And this is the resulting animation after several days of work. And this is the end of this 3D jewelry animation in Blender Cycles. Creating animation tutorials is very complex because the amount of work is gigantic. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial a lot. Be nice to the planet, be nice to animals, take care, and see you soon.